It is Wednesday, March 26th, and the full thread from Signal has been released. And what do you know? Dems and the media caught lying again. We're going to show you as Elon Musk gets tapped to figure out how this happened in the first place. How did the most partisan 2-bit reporter in DC get invited to join this group chat with Trump's national security team? Also, President Trump moving to immediately overhaul all future voter registration, ensuring only American citizens can participate in U.S. elections, and Republicans in Congress about to defund all public media. About freaking time. And more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So the full Signalgate thread has been released only 12 hours, by the way, after Jeffrey Goldberg claimed he would be endangering American lives if he released the full thread. According to The Atlantic, Trump's national security team involved in this chat were texting such highly sensitive war plans, top secret plans, that he'd be breaking the law and endangering the homeland if he released it in full. Even fellow left-wing media personalities were telling him, look, you're the one claiming they texted war plans. Cough it up or shut up. Watch.
Now the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate special committees on intelligence? Maybe. I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look.
I feel like no. I mean, I obviously. Let me just put it this way: my colleagues and I, and the advice that and the people who are giving us advice on this have some interesting conversations to have about this.
Yeah.
But just because they're irresponsible with material doesn't mean that I'm going to be irresponsible with this material. And you know what? I could, whatever.
Well, what do you know? 12 hours later, The Atlantic releasing it all. After a full day of hysterical coverage about the so-called war plans, it turns out those plans included no names, no targets, no locations, no units or sources or methods, no classified intel. They did, however, include times for when the attacks were scheduled, but no surprise, the media is now abandoning their war plans claim. Here was Secretary of Defense Hegseth commenting about all of this morning. Watch.
Here to do. Nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning, out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning. You know who does attack plans and war plans? Men like that admiral right there, Paparo for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla, our general in CENTCOM. They do attack plans and war plans. And thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it.
We said yesterday how this was all a setup. They had all this lined up so that the story would publish one day before Tulsi and Radcliffe were scheduled to sit in front of the SSCI. And now, one day later, the left-wing watchdog group, American Oversight, the worst of the worst, files a lawsuit about this, and coincidentally has the case assigned to who? Guess who? Judge Boasberg, the same judge fighting Trump over his deportation plan, is assigned this new lawsuit alleging Pete Hegseth violated federal records laws by discussing the Houthi attack on this group chat. This is the first successful setup we've seen during Trump 2.0. After 65 days straight of nonstop wins, Trump's suffered a setback because obviously this was a big mistake The mistake wasn't why Trump's national security team was using an encrypted group chat to discuss national security matters. Obviously, they were doing that. I find nothing wrong with what they were doing. My question is, how in the world did a reporter from The Atlantic, one of the most partisan, dishonest reporters in D.C., get mistakenly invited to join this group chat? The same reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg, who described Joe Biden as mentally acute in the weeks before he withdrew from the election, the same reporter involved in the Suckers and Losers hoax, multiple other hoaxes, that's a serious problem. That's a serious vulnerability. Clearly, this reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg, was somehow involved in this social engineering campaign, social engineering hack against Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor. I mean, that seems like a crime to me. From what I understand, Waltz's chief of staff was the person that he invited. And inside his cell phone, his chief of staff's contact record had Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number on it. How did that happen? Watch Mike Waltz tell Laura Ingraham yesterday that he's never spoken to Jeffrey Goldberg, and he has no clue how his phone number got on his chief of staff's contact record. Watch.
I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the
execute
number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt fielding question after question about this today and adding that Elon Musk may be tasked to figure this out, get to the bottom of how the number was switched. Watch.
Previous question from Jennifer. As for your original question about who's looking into the messaging thread, the National Security Council, the White House counsel's office, and also, yes, Elon Musk's team. Elon Musk has offered to put his technical experts on this to figure out how this number was inadvertently added to the chat. Again, to take responsibility and ensure this can never happen again.
I have two questions. One.
In another story, the Republican-controlled Congress is setting up a path to defund all public media. That means no more NPR, no more PBS, no more biased news media funded by you, the taxpayer. The first step in this process is to hold hearings with these public media outlets, questioning their CEOs on the record to determine if they're worthy of our tax money. Obviously, they're not. Well, those hearings began today. This has nothing to do with targeting adversarial media networks. It's got nothing to do with free speech. It has to do with eliminating state-funded propaganda. NPR and PBS are free to continue broadcasting, but they can do so without U.S. tax dollars. In 2024, NPR received $32 million of taxpayer funding. NPR, one of the most anti-Trump left-wing media outlets. Why is our money going to keep NPR in business? The government taxes us, takes our money, and gives it to NPR.
Former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time to
Peabody Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is, absolutely.
So pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner. Was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concern. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. They said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate. Yeah.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and they said, Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said, Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the time.
You didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID origin story? That's a pretty big story too, right? Mr. Berliner said, we became fervent members of the team Natural Origin, even declaring that the lab leak was debunked by scientists. Turns out, though, the lab leak is what most people think actually caused the COVID virus.
Sorry, is there a question there?
There is. You guys were 0 for 3 on the three of the biggest stories in the last 5 years. You guys were 0 for 3, and yet you maintain that NPR is not biased?
Congressman, I do not believe we are politically biased. No, we are a nonpartisan organization.
Nonpartisan organization.
In another story, Democrats' new party leader, Jasmine Crockett of Texas, is blasting Trump supporters for misinterpreting, she says, her statements about her state's governor when she called Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels on Monday. Watch.
Thank you so much, Morgan, because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes. Right, okay. All right, I'm gonna move on.
Crockett now says that she's appalled that people think she was referring to his wheelchair, writing on X, I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear amongst the most vulnerable. Literally, the next line I said was that he was a hot-ass mess, referencing his terrible policies. At no point did I mention or allude to his condition. So I'm even more appalled, she says, that the very people who unequivocally support Trump, a man known for racially insensitive nicknames and mocking those with disabilities, are now outraged. Yeah, let me know in the comments. Do you buy this? We all heard what she said. Now accusing Trump supporters of misinterpreting her words. I call that gaslighting. Next level gaslighting, in my opinion. In another story, President Trump signing a big executive order yesterday called the Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections. The order invokes sweeping changes to the election process, cleaning it up. That's what it does, simplifying the process. The biggest change requires an official government ID proving you're a citizen, a U.S. citizen, in order to register to vote. States will have to follow these rules in order to get federal election funding. The order also updates voting machine standards. Every vote going forward will need a paper record, a paper ballot copy, so that you as the voter can check your vote, that it was counted correctly. It also prevents states from counting votes after election day. So no more blue states changing the rules weeks before the election, allowing 14 days or 21 days in some cases to cast your ballot. Here was Trump yesterday explaining why the CO is so important to him. Watch this.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but the compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other. And it's an honor to sign this one. To sign all of them, but to sign this one is a great honor.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.